An interesting thing that we're seeing now, you have Minnesota and what they're trying to do. Fast forward a year ago, January of 2025, a lot of people don't remember, I called a special session of the legislature for immigration enforcement. And we did a bunch of different things that were good. But the core thing that I wanted to see in legislation, which we got, was all state and local must cooperate with DHS for immigration enforcement. It doesn't mean that a police department, It doesn't mean that a police department has to do the federal government's job for them, but it does mean if our state troopers pull over an illegal alien for drunk driving, and they have reason to believe he's here illegally, then they need to turn that person over to DHS. If you got someone in your county jail that's an illegal alien, you need to make sure DHS is able to come pick them up and remove them from our communities. And yes, we also require street-level enforcement where we have task force, we have all this stuff. So, but I insisted on that. And at the time, we actually had opposition, this, that, all the things. But why did I do that? Because I knew, even in a red state like Florida, you get mayors, you get different types of, now most of our sheriffs want to be a part of it, but not all, some police chiefs, whatever, that they would be doing what the mayor of Minneapolis or the governor of Minnesota or somebody to try to not just not cooperate, they won't even turn over criminal aliens that are incarcerated to DHS for removal. They won't even do that, but they're doing more. They're whipping up active sabotaging of this federal mission. And I saw that would be a possibility, and so what we did is what we did. So now you could have some mayor in wherever, I'm gonna stop ICE, all this stuff. Okay, you know what? You're gone. You're out of your position, and you get removed. It's just that simple. But it's interesting because, just think about how crazy this has gotten. So Biden comes in, and he opens the border. Well, first of all, I don't know if he opened the border or the auto pen opened the border, but someone opened that doggone border. I know that. So you have an open border. And we sent people to help Texas. We were the first state. We sent to Martha's Vineyard, you name it. We did every tool at our disposal we did to be able to help protect Floridians from what Biden was doing. But the reality is, there would be things we would do, like, we made it, we wanted to say, if you come to Florida illegally, that in and of itself is a crime. There's certain things we tried to do, and then they'd sue us in court. Now, courts would say, it's a federal function, So think about it. If the federal government's acting within its proper constitutional authority and is legislating something, then obviously a state can't come and do the opposite of what that law is if it's in their proper sphere. But think about Biden was not enforcing federal law. We were just trying to be faithful to federal law. We weren't trying to violate. We were trying to do what the law says, and that meant, apprehension and removal of illegal aliens. And you can't. It's a federal function. They got to have discretion. They can do here or there what they want to do. Okay. Well, first of all, I don't agree with that. I think if the state is furthering the law, enforcement of the law, I think you have a right to do it. So we've battled on that. It's changed now because the Trump administration welcomes our cooperation. But now what you have in some of these states, you have the governor up in the Northeast just said they're doing like a website and a hotline where people can film ICE and send things and do all this stuff, all that. What they're whipping up in Minnesota, what they're trying, so states somehow it's a federal function. You don't have the right to faithfully enforce federal law when the federal government's not. But when the federal government wants to enforce it under a new administration, somehow these states can sabotage the enforcement and somehow that's okay. Well, either it's a federal function or not. If you say states shouldn't be, then you should not be out there, trying to upend the apple cart. But that's what they're doing. I think they think they're getting a short-term political advantage, and they may be. I don't know. But what I do know is North is North. If you have a task to correct what Biden did to this country, that's not dependent on the news cycle. That needs to be done. And some of these jabroni politicians should not stand in the way, and you should not let them get away with that. But I'm seeing that where they're really not just not cooperating, which, think about it, if you as a resident and somebody is like in jail for sexual assault, illegal alien, would you want the person released into your community, or would you want the person deported? I mean, seriously. Obviously, you'd want them turned over to DHS. And they won't even do that, which is really, really bad. But they're going a step further. They're fomenting street-level opposition, not just protest. You have a right to protest. Fine, protest. I mean, like, I see, like, I'll go sometimes in Florida, there'll be like, 5 of these, like, it's just fine. Like, look, if that's what you want to do, if that's what you want to do with your free time, like, God bless you, man. But, like, it just doesn't. You ain't moving the needle, let's just put it that way. But that's fine. If that really matters to you, you can do it. Obviously some of those other areas, they get more people. A lot of these people are paid, let's just be honest with that. And so, you've got the Soros and network and all this stuff. All these Democrat politicians, they take a photo with Alex Soros, and then he tweets it out. This governor, this senator, it's like a humiliation ritual, and they're doing it. And what Alex Soros is doing by putting those pictures out is he's just, verifying to the rest of us he owns those politicians, right? They are pursuing his and his dad's agenda, and part of that is what you're seeing, in all these other areas. But they are fomenting all this stuff, and it's really outrageous to see, kind of how that's done. So we nipped this in the bud last year, at the beginning of the year, knowing that this was going to be something that was significant, knowing that we had to have to all be on the same team. And look, there's some sheriffs, mayors, police chiefs that are very gung-ho. They want to work with us. They want to work with DHS. They want to get the job done because they know it's important. But there's others that would rather not do it, right? Or some would even try to say, well, we've made the law very clear in Florida. So we had an election in 2022. I won, had a lot of room to spare on that one. 2024, Donald Trump won Florida, won it significantly. And so we're bringing forward policies to help effectuate that agenda. And I just think that that's something that's really, really important. So Florida led the way on that way before anyone else was talking about any of this stuff.